Good morning, Cuse Nation, and welcome to the Upstate Orange Podcast on FingerLakes1.tv and YouTube. I'm Jim Sinacropi, back live inside the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York, on Sunday morning, February 21st, 2016. And this morning we'll be talking about Syracuse's two-game losing streak after losses to Louisville and Pitt. We'll reevaluate our NCAA resume, and as usual, some great Orange basketball trivia. The Upstate Orange Podcast is brought to you by Generations Bank with locations in Auburn, Farmington, Geneva, Phelps, Seneca Falls, Union Springs, and Waterloo. Be sure to check out their mobile banking app or visit them online at mygenbank.com. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome into the program the professor, Brad Connor. How you doing this morning, Brad?
Jim, happy Sunday morning to you. Happy belated birthday to you.
Yes, a little fun fact for you. Yesterday was my 44th birthday, so it should be a great year for Syracuse sports this year, right? My 44th.
If Syracuse were to ever win a title, it should be in your 44th year, you would think.
Yeah, so we'll keep our fingers crossed. Right now it doesn't look as good as it was looking last week at this time, that's for sure. And I guess that's at the heart of our first of our Big Five topics this morning. And that is, what the heck is the story with going to Louisville and playing Pitt anywhere? I mean, Dixon and Patino just, especially Dixon, if you look at their record, I think it's like 9 of the last 11 Dixon's won. Does that sound accurate? That's off the top of my head.
I don't remember that stat, but that would not shock me in the least.
Yeah, so what the heck is the story with losing at Louisville and at Pitt? It was almost like going back, a month or so, a month and a half to when Syracuse couldn't close out games and just folded in the second half. Those were terrible, terrible games, especially the second half.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up, because that's exactly what I thought, where it was reminiscent of those games early in the early in the ACC season. And some of the games where Mike Hopkins was in charge, where they just seemed like they ran out of steam. But it was a little bit different to me, especially yesterday, just because, and you may have seen it differently than I did, but it never really felt like Syracuse was the better team, and that was shocking to me. And that was partly the poor play of a couple of the guys that we'll talk about. And to me, it's just, and that's indicative of any time they play Pitt. Pitt just wears you down, and they just play a physical style that this team is absolutely not accustomed to. This team does not match that style at all, and I think it's just a bad matchup for Syracuse. I mean, this is like it or not, with the exception of DeJuan Coleman, this is a finesse team, period. Yeah. It stinks to have to say that, but they're a soft team. That's what you get when you commit yourself to jacking up threes, and when Coleman's out of the game, you got Leiden in the down low playing the five. I mean, he's not going to be a physical presence, and I mean, they just bring men at you, Artis and Young and Robinson at guard, and I mean, these guys just go hard and they come after you from the start to finish, and that's a tough matchup for these guys.
Yeah, and I think I think Pitt does the best of strategy wise of playing against Syracuse's offense. The way they switch and help off of ball screens at the top. I mean, you could see Malachi Richardson especially seemed frustrated to me trying to, get his shot off. Usually get his shot off. He ended up taking a lot of bad shots, a lot of off-balance shots, because every time he came off a ball screen, there was another Panther kind of waiting for him there. I wish. Yeah,
I mean, Jamie Dixon's he's a good coach, and I don't think he's gotten his due because they tend to crumble in the postseason, but as a regular season coach and as a game strategist, I mean, he's one of the best out there. And I think you see what happens when he goes up against Boeheim. He matches him. Whatever Boeheim tries to throw at him, he sort of makes the adjustment. And you've got physical, hard-nosed guys, and that's been their calling card. And in a lot of years, that's Duke's calling card, and that's what makes them successful. And you could go down the line. There's a lot of teams that Michigan State's another one. They just come at you and just go hard, and it just wears on you. And it's a tough matchup for these guys when Syracuse is designed to play. They recruit to a zone. They recruit long, lanky, lean guys. Those guys will not match up against a strong, beefy front line, which Pitt always brings.
Yeah, and Louisville brought with old Lorenzo Nwako's brother there, who wish he was at Syracuse. You think that guy could help this year's team?
No kidding. That guy's a man among boys.
But I'll tell you, why doesn't Pitt's, we see Pitt constantly beat us year after year and then constantly bow out of the NCAA tournament, before the Final Four, usually well before that too. Why doesn't that recipe for success against Syracuse work against the rest of the country in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what you see in the tournament, what you tend to see in the tournament, is the stars shine. They, the top teams tend to have one or two or three NBA guys. Just superstar guys.
Yeah.
Pitt never has that guy. They are a great team. They play great college basketball style defense, and they're a smart, heady group. But they're never going to wow you with their athleticism. They're never going to have a superstar go off for 25 or 30.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you think about the great Pitt players. You think about Brandon Knight. Who are some of the other ones going way back? Charles Smith and Jerome Lane.
Smith and Jerome Lane and those guys. But in the Jamie Dixon era, yeah, I mean,
Frank, a couple of years ago, they had a good score. Frank, well, it just goes to show you, like you said.
But that's the thing. Like they're kind of forgettable because they don't end up playing a lot of NBA guys, and so it's sort of a long line of 6'8", 230 guys that just sort of bounce you around and play great defense and finish plays. Do you ever see a team that converts more and ones than Pitt?
Yeah, that's maybe at least against us.
But I mean, it just goes to the strength. I mean, defense, Syracuse especially, but others too. They'll foul you and they just go strong. Where you see a guy like DeJuan Coleman, as strong and big as he is, he gets fouled when he goes up and the ball goes flying. How often does he finish that?
Yeah. Well, speaking of our big men, I don't know if you caught the post-game press conference yesterday, but Boeheim just ripped Roberson and really, it was shocking. I've seen a lot of shocking things in Boeheim's press conference, but I was kind of shocked at the stuff he said about Roberson.
He doesn't often call guys out directly in the post game. That was surprising. Roberson
took one shot in the whole game against Pitt. Syracuse was desperate for offense. He grabbed 4 rebounds in a game where Syracuse was out rebounded by 20 rebounds. And so Boeheim said, if I had anyone else, he wouldn't play a minute. You watch the game. I'm not going to describe what he did out there. And then Roberson said, well, that's what he thinks. I mean, that's his opinion. I don't know. He was beaten down in the post-game locker room. But Boeheim said if I had anyone else, he wouldn't play a minute, which is crap because he's got Chinoso Oboko. I mean, obviously,
Yeah, Chinoso Oboko could give you 4 rebounds and, one missed shot, I would like to think.
So is it like a motivational tool that Boeheim's doing, or is he just really frustrated with Roberson? I mean, I'm frustrated with Roberson. Some games, he is my favorite player that's ever played at Syracuse, like the Duke game.
Yeah.
That game, Roberson was like, I couldn't have been more happy. And then the Pitt game is just the opposite. And I don't know if it's a lack of focus or what it is. I really believe that Tyler Roberson tries his hardest every time he steps on the court. I don't think that, he backs off it in certain games. I don't know. There may be a bad matchup for him too against Pitt, but man, Boeheim really, when he said that, I really raised an eyebrow. I was like, whoa, hopefully Roberson doesn't transfer tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, but Boeheim's comment, I mean, he made a comment in that same, as he was going off on him, he's a junior, and he said you can't get a single point. You can't have a junior be in the program and play all the time, and when you get to your junior year, you can't score. You just can't win that way. And that's legitimate. I mean, as a freshman or sophomore, you expect to go through lulls, but as a junior and been in the program for 3 years and started for 2 years and played big, considerable minutes as a freshman, you've got to have more consistency from a guy like that. And that's been every year we talk about him. Hey, maybe this is the year he's going to make the leap, and maybe this is you see one game like a Duke game. Okay, he's ready to make that leap. He's ready to be a great player. He's gone through these lulls consistently his entire career. If there's anything consistent about him, it's his inconsistency, and it's just from game to game. I mean, you look at his game by game stats. He had 20 rebounds against Duke. And then he has 7 rebounds, 9 rebounds, 8 rebounds, 15 against Virginia Tech, but then it's 3, and it's 6, and it's 4, and it's 4. And I don't know. I mean, I think Duke's front line's not great, so that may have been a good matchup for him. Virginia Tech is Virginia Tech, so that's a good matchup for him. But I mean, if he's getting boxed out by Pitt, trust me, he's not going after the offensive glass quite as hard. He's not able to. You talk about matchups. That's probably the toughest matchup he'll see all season.
Yeah, and Boeheim did mention that. He said, well, he goes, because a reporter asked him, why do they struggle to get rebounds some games? In other games, they, have a rebounding edge, and same thing with Roberson. And Boeheim said, well, look at the teams that you're talking about. They're not good rebounding teams. Pitt, great rebounding team. Louisville, good rebounding team. Syracuse is just not a great rebounding team, and they appear to be good at rebounding when they play other teams that aren't good at rebounding as well. So same thing with Tyler Lydon. I mean, that guy tries as hard as he can to get rebounds. I mean, he's really active in there, and but he just doesn't have the body to go up against some of these better, bigger front lines. So
yeah, Tyler Lydon had 1 rebound yesterday. Great game, 21 points. Was nailing threes, and he was practically half of the scoring for the good portion of the game, and but didn't score as much down the stretch, and 1 rebound from a guy who played 31 minutes down low. I mean, that's pretty difficult to accept too.
Yeah, it really was a tough game to watch, because the whole first half I was thinking we got this game, and then the second half just almost immediately you could tell they just weren't going to win it. And Pitt has a knack of hitting big shots against us. I just only think we're going to get back into it or get over the hump. Somebody hits a 3 from the top of the key. And granted, we're not getting out on those shooters. I mean, I wasn't really pleased with our defense yesterday, especially against the perimeter shooters. But, it was a tough one. But, one thing over the past couple weeks that really has me excited about the future is watching Frank Howard play. He just has that point guard flair and mentality and knack, and I wish he played more earlier in the year, because I think he'd be more prepared to help us now. He's just learning what it's like to play 10, 12 minutes in a game. But he's our point guard next year, I think, and the year after. I think, I know we got Tyus Battle coming in, but he hopefully will fill in more Benny J's role and play off the ball, because I like Frank Howard as our point guard for the next 3 years of this program. I don't know if you feel the same way or not.
No, I definitely do. I like what Frank Howard brings. I think he sees the game and plays the game like a point guard does. And I love Michael Benijay as much as anybody and what he can do, all the facets to his game. But he's not a point guard. He's a capable point guard, but he's not an elite point guard, and probably never will be. Frank Howard has that potential. He's a freshman, so it's hard to project him out 2 or 3 years from now of how good he can be. The one thing that I worry about with him, man, he cannot shoot the basketball right now.
Yeah.
He's shooting 7% behind the arc. That's not a shooting threat whatsoever. I mean, we joked about Ron Patterson last year. Frank Howard is every bit as bad as Ron Patterson shooting threes, and even from 2. I mean, he's shooting 26-27% from the field.
Yeah, Boeheim doesn't want him to shoot at all. He doesn't want him. He would be happy if he had 0 shots, unless it happened to be like a transition layup.
Yeah, he made a mistake yesterday. He came down. He was trying to set up the offense and just pulled up for like a 15-footer, and I mean, it wasn't even close. And that was the time when Syracuse it started to get away from him a little bit. And the announcer sort of made a comment about it of, hey, that's probably not the look you want. And as far as Pitt's concerned, that's the look they absolutely want. They were letting Frank Howard shoot the ball. That was a good play by them. And so they got it and came back and scored and extended the lead. And to be an elite player, he's got to be able to create some weapons for himself from the outside so they can respect his ability to get to the basket, because otherwise you just sag on him and force him to shoot 18-footers that he can't make.
He'll have time, hopefully, to develop a better shot.
Yeah, that's what we said about Ron Patterson, too. So
yeah, that's true.
Fingers crossed on this one.
That's true. I look at, like, Lazarus Sims led us to national championship game in '96, which we're going to talk extensively about coming up here. Was never a great shooter, but if you left him open, he could can it. His advantage was he was able to learn from some good players and didn't really see huge minutes until later in his career. Sure.
Where Frank where he's getting into it, getting his wheels about him. But like you said, next year I think he's the guy, and hopefully that's something he's ready for, because there are no other capable options at this point. I mean, like you said, Tyus Battle could be that guy, but again, I don't think you want to throw a freshman into it as quickly as we did with Caleb Joseph, and look what happened to him.
Yeah, we got lucky with Carter Williams, so
and
Tyler Ennis. That we were into the mode. I was into the mode at least too. That's why when Caleb Joseph came in, I'm like, we're not going to miss a beat. This kid's going to be great. But the guys
you fall into that trap of, hey, it's the one and done era, and freshmen are the best players out there, and you see what Kentucky does and some of the others, and we've had some of those guys too here, and yeah, that's the exception rather than the norm.
So I'm excited because I think Howard can develop into that solid point guard. So for the next, he's not going to go pro, right? Hopefully, in the next 3 years. So we could have a solid point guard for the next 3 years. Which is
encouraging. That's exciting.
So, but this year, let's take a look at the old NCAA resume. Last week we sat here and it was like, all flowers and sunshine, wondering if we were going to be a 4 or 5 seed, and how quickly things can change with 2 losses, right back on the bubble again. And when I look at, I remember we're 18-10 right now, and I remember 2 weeks ago we said they needed to win 7 of their last 10. Well, they ran off 5 straight wins, so now it looked like, we're easily going to win 7 of those 10 because we're 5-0 at this point. Then last week, so we said they needed just 2 of the next 5. So that seemed pretty easy too. But now, after losing these 2, we need 2 of the next 3. One of them is against North Carolina. At North Carolina, NC State at home, it's a program that over the years has given us more trouble than they probably should have, going back to the Julius Hodge days when they came to the Dome and beat us. And then at FSU, which we handled FSU pretty good in the Dome, but we got to go on the road in a game that's going to probably mean a lot for them too. So 2 of these next 3 now we need to get to that magic mark of 20 wins before we head into the ACC tournament. Because I don't want to head to the ACC tournament at 19 wins with a potential of an opening round loss. We get to 20 wins, we're in the tournament, right?
Yeah, I think so. Especially when you get, I think I've heard a lot of comments about this, that the magic number coming out of the ACC is probably 10 wins. So if you can get to 20 wins regular season, that means overall you've got 10 wins in the ACC,
right,
which I think is enough. Louisville being out of the tournament definitely helps, because that takes one spot away from a team that would have deserved it before Syracuse. But I think a 20-win regular season, a 20-win overall, 10-win ACC, it'd be hard to turn a team down like that, especially in a season this year, where there's so much parity. And the ACC was a little bit down last few years. I think it's back to where there's a national perception that it's an elite league this year.
Yeah. That St. John's won again at least. So
man, that just hangs over their heads like an albatross. If it wasn't for that, I don't think this team would have any issues. Now, granted, it was without Coach Boeheim, and they said they'll discount those a little bit, but still, St. John, they've now since won a game since that day. So congrats to Chris Mullen and St. John's, but man, that still just hangs heavy over this team.
Yeah, it may at this point. It's going to be one of those selection Sundays where, it seems to me that every time Syracuse is legitimately on the bubble, that we don't get the nod. That's over the years. Jerry McNamara's junior year, what year? Or Johnny Flynn? The Johnny Flynn era, there was a couple years where I thought
Johnny Flynn's sophomore season.
Yeah, I'm thinking
when they legitimately should have made it, and then didn't.
So I don't want to be there, I want to be into that. And I thought we were in. I was just waiting to see who we played, and when they didn't call our name that year, I was just dumbfounded. And so I don't want to give us any chance, to not be in there, because I'll tell you what. We missed it last year. You missed it 2 years in a row. Your name's not in those brackets 2 years in a row. That is really a sign that your program, even though 1 year was probation, that really is a bad sign for your program nowadays. I mean, my God, 60 how many teams are in now? 68, 69?
68 teams.
68
you better
teams.
Be one of those best 68. Now, I mean, to be fair, there's 34 at large. So
it's not the best 68, but nonetheless, that's a big field.
Yeah. team that perceives themselves as an elite program to miss it 2 years in a row. And let's be honest, they would not have made it last year had they not been on probation.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So
selfishly though, I sort of hope they're the last 4 in, so I can drive up to Dayton and watch them in the first 2 days. But I don't want to sweat it that much. I don't think.
Yeah. Well, back to brighter days. 1996, the team was honored against Pitt in the Dome, and 20 years ago, that great team led by John Wallace, and really, there's been so many times when Syracuse has been expected to get there, and they haven't. This team was not expected to play in the national championship game, and so it was that much more kind of fun. And some of the amazing wins along the way, to get them there. And just that run solidifying John Wallace as one of the elite Orange greats. We've had in past podcast discussions about how John Wallace may be the greatest Syracuse player ever, the most important player ever, right up there with Pearl Washington and Dave Ming. And we even had old JW on the show a couple years ago, which was one of the great thrills I've had in hosting this podcast, was talking to John Wallace for an hour. Maybe we should try to get him back, because that was enjoyable. But I want to segue from this last of our Big Five topics right into trivia, Brad, unless you have a quick comment before we start the trivia on you remembering that 96 team.
Well, I think, in terms of reminiscences, that team, like you said, Jim, with the 87 Final Four team, they were one of the great teams in the country that year, and they were certainly one of the most talented teams, if not the most talented team in the country that year. And that, we remember that team fondly, but there was also a team with great talent and had a great postseason run, but you sort of expected it. The 2003 team, they had the best player in the country, Carmelo Anthony. So while it was a pleasant surprise that they were able to do what they were able to do, I don't think any of us were blown away when they had the best player in the country on their team. The 2013 team, that was a nice surprise, because they struggled a little bit during the regular season, but you saw an emergence of Carter Williams during the course of that season, and you saw some real talented guys come together at the right time, and the defense was as good as this team has ever played it that season. Yeah. So I don't know as if that came across as too much of a, wow, I can't believe we're here kind of thing. 96 always felt that way. Wow, I can't believe this team is doing what they're doing. Now, to be fair, John Wallace is, he's one of the best players in the history of the program, but that wasn't a great team throughout the season. They went on some nice runs mid-season. They went on a nice run, and toward the obviously at the end they did. But I think generally speaking, we're still in awe of what they were able to do and how they were able to come together for a team that wasn't really expected to do much. They lost a lot of talent from the year prior, and the fact that they were able to come together at the right time, which this program doesn't often do. That's why we remember it so fondly. It just gave us one of the most pleasant postseasons that we can remember. And that to me is why we finally remember this team, I think.
Yeah, and it was kind of coming off the Moten era where they lost to Arkansas, I think it might have been.
Arkansas, when Moten called the timeout in the regulation that they didn't have and lost in the overtime.
And it was
against the defending champions. That was a game they should have had. But Moten was the leading scorer in the history of the program. You lose a guy like that, and it makes you wonder where does the offense come from? Where's the leadership come from? And John Wallace filled that void without 44. Any question.
Number 44. So let's kick it over to Connor's Corner Trivia, because you've got some trivia focused on that 96 team, I assume. Well, I know because you told me before we went on the air. So so what do you got for us this week? I'm ready for it.
No, that team was I love looking back about that team. I love researching that team and remembering some of the things that I may not have recalled very easily. It's a fun team to think about, a fun team to remember. One of the best memories that I'll have as a Syracuse fan was the Jason Spola hitting that shot against Georgia in regulation to tie that game and take it to overtime. And
how unlikely that was.
That's one of those things that I'll always remember, where I was and who I was with and how I felt when I saw that. That's one of the great moments as a Syracuse fan. So that's good stuff in 96. But yeah, we got some trivia. There were 12 scholarship players on that team. Can you name all 12?
Oh, boy. Well, I think I can go with easy ones like John Wallace, Otis Hill, Sims, Janulis, Sapola, Reef Snyder, Todd Bergen, and that's 7. And I got 10. Do you need 3 more?
12. I need 5 more.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you got the easy ones.
Elvira Olchina.
Elvira of China, yep.
Bobby Laser, right?
Bobby Laser's a good call.
Transfer out. This guy might have been a walk-on, but Nelson Emil, what was his first name?
Elimu Nelson.
Elimu Nelson.
That's a great call.
He was on scholarship.
What's that?
He was a scholarship player?
He wasn't at first, and they awarded him a scholarship for his last 2 seasons. So maybe even just his last season.
So I need 2 more now?
2 more.
Oh, now this is where it's... Oh, you know what? I got one. David Patrick.
Wow, that's a great call.
One of the lesser-known scholarship players in the history of the program. And now is where I'm going to not get this last one. I really don't think I can.
If you got it, I would accuse you of having a list in front of you.
Yeah, I really can't think of... I wouldn't know where to start.
No, you'll never get it. I wouldn't even have gotten it had I not looked it up. Jim Hayes.
Oh, good old Jim Hayes, yep.
Jim Hayes was a walk-on that earned a scholarship his last 2 or 3 seasons. Big guy, 7-footer. He barely ever played.
Yeah.
He didn't even score a point as a senior that year.
So there's the 12 scholarship players. That was pretty good. I'd take 11 out of 10 or 11 out of 12.
There's 12. Can you tell me who the top 7 were in order of points per game?
I think I could. Wallace, number 1.
Yep.
Now, Janulis was a freshman that year, or was he a sophomore?
Janulis was a sophomore that year.
Okay, so he might have provided some scoring, but we had Otis Hill. I would say Otis Hill would be second.
Yep.
So also a junior or a sophomore that year was Todd Bergen. Did he score enough as a... Yeah, I'm going to go with Bergen 3.
Yeah, Bergen 3. So before I looked it up, I would have thought Bergen would have been above Otis Hill, but then you think about, Wallace has probably taken a lot of Bergen shots, where Otis Hill was, a big man getting a lot of run inside.
So
Bergen and Wallace were they weren't identical players, but they were similar. Slashers, good shooters.
So then Sapola must be 4th.
Sapola's 4th, yeah.
And then 5th will be either Sims or Janulis. I'm gonna say Sims because he had so many minutes he had to score.
Yep, you're right.
And then Janulis 6.
Yep.
And then Reef Snyder 7.
Correct. So just to run it down, Wallace was first. He had averaged 22 a game. But wouldn't it be nice if we had a guy averaging 22 a game now, huh?
Yeah, 18 a game would be nice. Well, actually, what's
Otis Hill averaged 12.7, second. Todd Bergen 12.1. Jason Sapola 7.7. Sims 6.3. Janulis 6.1, and Reese Snyder 5.5. Continuing down that list, Elvira of China averaged 2.7. Bobby Laser just over 2 points a game. Elimu Nelson 1. David Patrick averages under 1, and Jim Hayes didn't score a point.
Bobby Laser.
And you know who else averaged a point per game on that team?
No.
I didn't list.
No idea.
Donovan McNabb.
Oh yeah, good call. Good call. He was a scholarship player, but just for football.
That's right.
So, yeah, that's a good point. McNabb was on that team.
Yeah. So tell me where those guys were from.
Oh boy, John Wallace was from Rochester.
What high school?
Greece Athena.
Correct.
And that might be the end of these that I get right.
Come on, you know where Sims was from?
Sims was from the southern tier of New York.
Or Sims?
Yeah, where was he from?
Syracuse, New York.
Oh, he was a local boy, huh? Jeez.
Henninger High School.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Now that was an easy one that I blew, so that'll give me much hope for the rest of these guys. Marius Janulis was from Lithuania.
Correct. Well, where did he go to high school? Where did he graduate high school?
Oh, he went to high school in Section 5 of New York at, Vestal?
No, you're thinking of Dave Syock.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I really don't know. I can't. It's not coming to me.
Prattsburg.
which is kind of amazing. That's a D school. Class D.
And I think what happened was he was an exchange student that I don't know how he ended up in Prattsburg, or if he had any aspirations of playing high-level basketball. I mean, Prattsburg's a historically great.
Yeah, but Class D,
program,
which is the same as like Romulus.
Class D, it's the smallest classification in New York State.
So what did they have success when he was there, Prattsburg?
I think they won sectionals.
Yeah,
I don't know
I would
if they
hope
went on
so.
to Glens Falls, but I do think that they won sectionals that year.
You don't see many kids coming from Class D going to D1 schools, so.
No, but Syracuse had a walk-on from Class D, Section 5.
In 96 or?
No, not 96, but a few years ago. No, that's a trivia for a different day.
Oh, yeah, Christian White is. Oh, yeah, that was Aquinas though, Class A.
Aquinas, yeah. Yeah. All right, we won't talk about that. We'll talk about that at a different time. Otis
Hill.
And Reese Snyder.
Oh, now I knew J.B. Reese Snyder. I should know this one because I knew the guy. Like I was when I was in school, from 90 to 95, 91, 95-ish, and actually hung around with Reese Snyder in Secunda. I've told Reese Snyder stories.
You were great fans with JB or friends with JB Reese Snyder though. I don't want to get into any JB Reese Snyder bashing around here, but he was a different guy. That's for sure. But where did he go to high school? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't even put. Well, he was from right up the road from me. He was from Westchester, Ohio. He went to Lakota High School.
Oh, okay. So an Ohio guy.
Yeah, I knew somebody really well that went to Lakota High School.
Yeah.
We played. My sixth graders played in the high school tournament at Lakota last year. Otis Hill. Where's he from?
Oak Hill Academy.
Incorrect.
See, I'm usually pretty good with these, and I just not on this morning. Otis Hill can't. I don't know. You better give me Otis Hill, Brad.
Otis Hill's from White Plains.
Another. So these guys are all from New York State, pretty much.
Not all of them, but a good portion of them, yeah. With Pleasantville High School in White Plains, Otis Hill.
Cipolla was from New Jersey.
Incorrect.
Oh, great. I don't know. I don't want to waste time because I'd just be throwing out random guesses. I can't.
Cipolla is from Queens. He went to Christ the King.
Oh, wow. Another Christ the King guy.
But he didn't come to Syracuse from Christ the King. Do you remember where he came from?
Junior college somewhere. Not California, was it? Was it?
No.
Yeah.
From Tallahassee Community College. You would never get it.
Yeah, you're right about that.
He was a junior college guy, which is funny to think about because I don't recall too many junior college guys that Coach Boeheim has ever recruited.
Let alone guys that have a significant impact like that.
Right.
Yeah, it's not like our football program where we're getting Todd Bergen. I want to say Louisiana, but that's Dave Johnson. Todd Bergen and Dave Johnson are similar to me. Yeah,
they're similar players. You're right about that.
Todd Bergen. Nothing's clicking here with Bergen either. I know I'll know this one as soon as you say it.
He's from the Detroit Pipeline.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, from Pershing High School in Detroit. Another guy from the Dave Bing School.
I got to brush up on these these high schools for these Syracuse players. I used to have them all down.
Yeah. Bobby Laser.
California boy he was.
No.
No?
Not even close.
Connecticut?
Section 4 of New York State.
Oh, another guy from New York. Wow. Yeah. Lake George? Glen...
No. Norwich.
Oh, okay, Norwich, yeah. That, for whatever reason, that rings a bell. I'm just happy I remembered he was on the team.
The thing with Bobby Laser, 2 years at Syracuse, coming from Norwich, local guy, never really played much, transferred to Arizona State. In 2 years out there, he averaged 17 a game. He scored 1,000 points for Arizona State.
Isn't that
something?
Scored
like 50 for Syracuse.
That's crazy.
Like, that's just a guy that you sort of look back, man, he could have been a good contributor to this program. Boeheim,
Damn, didn't like him.
Like it or not, I think he probably ran him off.
Yeah, that is, and I do remember him having success after he left. Got to hit a great name.
Yeah.
Well,
and he could have filled the role that Wallace left. Wallace was significantly more athletic, obviously an NBA guy, but Laser would have stepped into that role and been a contributor, I think.
Sure. Okay.
David Patrick. Here's something I didn't know about David Patrick.
I don't know anything.
So what I did remember is where he was from, which you may or may not know.
I do not know.
Louisiana.
Oh.
High school in Baton Rouge. He was the Louisiana High School Player of the Year.
Wow.
His one high school season in Baton Rouge. Prior to that, he was raised in Australia, and he was born in Bermuda.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I had no idea.
World traveler with a plain name.
Yeah.
Like with an Irish name.
Well stamped. All right, so we covered the team. Real quick, what was the seed of that team going into the NCAA tournament?
7, 6?
No.
Higher?
Better than that. Yeah, higher than that.
Did they play in the 8-9 game that year, or were they even higher? Were they like a 10 seed? No, they couldn't have been a 10 seed, could they?
No, I mean, they had John Wallace on their team.
Yeah.
So they weren't like
I'll say 8 seed then. Or when you say higher seed, you mean better?
A better seed, like not a higher number.
They were 5 seed then.
Higher slotting in the bracket.
5 seed?
They were a 4.
They were a 4, wow.
Yeah.
So that's technically one of the top 16 teams in the country.
Yeah.
Wasn't that shocking?
They weren't completely out of left field, but
not like George
Mason. You don't expect too
Mason.
many 4 seeds to win a national championship or even make the finals.
Yep.
Do you remember their run? Who they beat?
Ooh, I could go backwards, and I'm gonna.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I'll go to Kentucky beat them. Crap officiating took it right out of our hands. Mississippi State in the Final Four, we waxed them pretty good.
Yeah.
They beat Georgia. Wasn't the win to get to the Final Four, was it?
No, it was not. That was Sweet 16.
That was Sweet 16. After Georgia, they beat another SEC team. Was it 3 SEC teams in a row? Wow, I can't believe I can't.
Well, it was 3 SEC teams, but you just named 3.
Oh, yeah, so in the Elite...
Who would they beat to go to the Final Four?
Yeah, how could I not remember that? Elite 8 in 96. A lot of times when I recollect this 96 team, I think of that Georgia game as the Elite 8 game because it was so memorable.
Yeah, naturally that's the one you think of that spurred them to the Final Four, but yeah, it just got them to the...
Could it have been Texas?
No, that was...
that was
Texas in
2003,
but that's not... No.
In the Final Four.
Close. Yeah, close, I guess. Same conference. Syracuse has a long and complicated history with this team.
Could have been a K-State.
Mostly good.
Kansas, K-State.
Kansas.
It was Kansas, huh? Wow.
It was one of the great games that this team has won in the postseason. That Kansas team, they had Jacques Vaughn, Ray LaFrance, Scott Pollard. That was a fantastic team.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I remember thinking when we played Kentucky,
Pierce was on that team, I believe.
I was like, we just beat this Kansas team that had just as many NBA prospects as Kentucky.
Right.
That was a great win.
That was a fantastic win.
And Roy Williams was on the bench, right?
Yeah, that makes
He's
it
probably
too.
bawling his eyes out after that one.
Of course he was.
Well, that's pretty good trivia, Brad. Is that it? Was that all we got? Or no, we got to go backwards even further.
You didn't go back in the run, but for the sake of time, I'll give you that. So in the second round, Syracuse beat Drexel.
Yep.
12 seed beat a 4, or a 4 seed beat a 12 rather. Syracuse beat Montana State in the first round.
And we beat Montana State recently too, didn't? Or no, that was just Montana. A couple years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So Syracuse benefited that year. There was, they were 4 seed. They played a 4-13. But then Drexel had a first-round upset, so then it was 4 against 12. They beat a 12 seed, and then in the Sweet 16, when you're a 4 seed, you expect to have to play the 1. Georgia upset the Purdue was the 1 seed. Then that team might have had Glenn Robinson that year. So then Syracuse then ended up having to play an 8 seed Georgia rather than a 1 seed Purdue, and was able to squeak by them in the game we all remember. And then the first really good team they played that year was Kansas, and that Mississippi State team wasn't a great team. They had Eric Dampier, but they weren't. I don't think anybody really thought they had a chance to win the national championship, and then obviously Kentucky.
Right.
Good stuff.
Yeah, great stuff. Great trivia. Great team. Kick it back to modern times here. 2 for the road. Home stretch. We've got NC State in the Dome, not till next Saturday, a week from yesterday. What the heck is going on? It's February. Why does Syracuse not play a game for 7 days? I mean, it's just ridiculous. But anyways, we got NC State.
Needs a week-long break, though. It's right now.
Yeah, we'll take it. We got to beat. That's the game we gotta win. No matter what, we got to win that game. It's a must-win. That's a must-win.
Yeah, unless they win the ACC Tournament or beat. I guess you could lose to NC State at home and then win at Carolina and Chapel Hill.
Yeah,
they probably negate, but that's that's one that would go in the bad loss column if it happened. NC State at home. And
I think we can beat UNC too. I think we can. I think this team can beat anybody if they are hot shooting, play good defense.
Yeah, unfortunately, they can lose to anybody if they're cold shooting.
Yeah, it's the way it goes. And then at Florida State on. By then it'll be March 5th. Can you believe that?
Yeah, another almost week.
Yeah. Well, it's just crazy scheduling. Maybe it's good, though, for us to space them out a little bit, get things in order before the postseason. But, we need 2 of these 3. NC State at Florida State are the obvious ones. At North Carolina would be a huge bonus. We could lose. As a matter of fact, we could beat North Carolina and lose the other 2, and it might be equal out as being just as good for our resume.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I think the quality wins. The bigger the quality win offsets the worst of the bad loss.
Yeah.
That tends to be, I think, what the committee focuses on, more of the good wins, especially road wins. And if you can win in Chapel Hill, I think that cures a lot of ills.
Well, winning at Duke is looking better now that Duke's resurgent.
Yeah, they lost them.
Yeah, they beat North Carolina.
But Louisville's a tough place to win. We know that all too well.
Right. But they did win. They won at UNC last week in the game of the century. My God, during that Louisville game. You know what? The first half of that Syracuse-Louisville game, they didn't have the announcers at courtside at Louisville on for like 10 minutes.
Absolutely ridiculous.
It's just so stupid. And you know what?
The Syracuse-Louisville game was the JV game. We all just breathlessly awaiting the varsity game.
Yeah, which really not. I mean, the Duke-Carolina rivalry really is kind of run its course a little bit. It happens twice a year, at least twice a year, and it's just, it's not that great. It's not that exciting or
kind of thing ESPN just crams down your throat whether you like it or not.
Yeah, and I do agree with what somebody said that college rivalries are better than pros rivalries, mainly because the what did he say? I can't remember the reasoning he said. I think it was, I can't remember who said it, but college rivalries generally are deeper rooted than pro rivalries.
Yeah, agreed. It's often the school you grew up with or somebody that's really closer to you. You went to school there or whatever. But yeah, I mean, the thing about those rivalries, I mean, I don't know how much the casual fan, everybody sort of, if you watch college basketball, you have a team, generally. There are very few just people that like the sport. They like a team. Syracuse fans don't necessarily care about Duke Carolina. They might casually watch it, but they've got their own team. Kentucky fans, they care about Kentucky. They don't care about Duke and Carolina. Duke and Carolina fans, they care about it. But even if you're an NC State fan or a Wake fan, I mean, you're sick and tired of Duke and Carolina. You don't want to.
You want them both to lose.
Right.
That's the worst part about it. When they play each other, somebody has to win.
Right. Yeah, unfortunate.
Well, we're kind of up against it here. This morning, got the last for 2 for the road here, and I don't know if did you watch Boeheim's interview with Seth Davis on College Insiders?
I did not, no.
Check it out. It's amazing. It's one of the best Boeheim interviews I've ever seen. They go about an hour, and he talks about everything from Lions, basketball to playing high school basketball at Lions and growing up in Lions to the NCAA investigation, and he even in this thing kind of leaves it open that he might not retire in 3 years.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, he said, he goes, a lot can happen in 3 years, he said. So I'm just putting that out there as a recommendation. Maybe, Brad, you watch it this week. We can touch on it next week. But as for this week's show, we got to cut it a little short this week because kind of up against it. We have another show coming up here in about 10 minutes in studio. So, Brad, another great hour or so talking Syracuse hoops. Coming off 2 losses is never as much fun as coming off a couple of wins, but we'll catch our breath this week. We'll come back with the NC State game, and then we'll be back here next Sunday to talk about it.
Yeah, we got 1 week and a handful of days until it's March, and that's the best time of the year. We're all excited for it.
And certainly there'll be a lot to talk about through the ACC Tournament and Selection Sunday. So, hang in there, Brad. Have a good week. Enjoy that NC State game next week, and we'll see you back here in 7 days.
Yes, sir.
And thanks to everyone for joining us here on the Upstate Orange Podcast. We'll be back again next Sunday with another edition. You can subscribe to our feed on iTunes, Stitcher.com, on YouTube, or via RSS. We're online at www.fingerlakes1.tv/upstateorange. And so, for the Professor, Brad Connor, I'm Jim Sinacropi. Have a great week. Beat NC State, and let's go Orange.